Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Colony Pit, your only spot where we catch up with our Colony friends and alumni. We have a great guest on today's show, Rex, who's on the hot seat for us.
All right, John, thank you. Today, we are keeping it in the family. We have Tony Martinez, John's little big brother these days, class of 1996. We got a great show planned. We're going to take it all the way back, bring it to the present, and everything in between. But Tony, before we kind of get into your story, let's see how Colonie you actually are. If you get the keys to the car and you get to put 4 other people in it, and you're taking a trip to Curva Cream, who are you picking up, and what flavor are you getting at Curva Cream?
Ooh, okay.
4 other people.
4 other people. So it's going to be Carlo Apollo, Jay Libertucci, Steve Donovan, and probably probably Nino Balduzzi.
All right.
Ooh,
cool.
Yeah. And then what flavor? Curva Cream. Gonna go with cookies and cream.
Nice.
Ooh, nice
in
choice.
a cone or a dish?
At that time I was probably doing cones, but today I'll probably do
Nice.
those.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, Tony, here we go. So, where are we going to find you most likely at? So, that's the question. Where are we going to find you most likely at? So, here it is at Caldor or service merchandise?
That's going to be service merchandise on Wolf Road. Yeah. Yeah.
Good choice. And then here's a bonus question. Did you ever put anything on layaway?
Service merchandise? I think I did, and it was a single shot BB gun before COT
Nice.
cartridges came. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh,
Is service merchandise even still there on Wolf Road?
No, I don't think
They
so.
went,
I
they
doubt
went out
it.
of business.
Yeah, but the
Oh,
BB
man.
gun purchase, that's interesting. That's a precursor for things to come, I think, but we'll get
Yeah.
to that later.
Yeah.
All right, so, we're back in 1996. You got time to kill with your boys. You're going to be a mall rat. Which mall you going to? Northway Mall, Colony Center, Crossgates, or Mohawk Mall?
That's going to be easy. That's going to be Crossgates. Yeah. As soon as Crossgates opened up, before Crossgates, it was definitely Colonie Center. Yeah, just because it was a mile up the road. But yeah, Crossgates for sure.
Yeah, and I think was it probably Montreal's closer than probably Mohawk Mall, so you had a better chance to go in there. Relax, everyone, relax with this Mohawk Mall crowd. All right, here we go. Where are we most likely to find you at? The Great Escape or Water Slide World?
Water Slide World. Yeah.
Nice. Wave pool.
I always like Lake George. I always like Lake George, just getting away from Albany, and it doesn't look like the city, and especially where I'm living now, there's parts of Arizona that look just like Lake George. So when the girlfriend and I, when we get out of town, we always want to go to some place that has like pine trees, dirt, doesn't look anything like the desert. So Lake George is always a place that I reference, like whenever we go up to like Sedona or Flagstaff or Prescott, I'm like, hey, this reminds me of back home. And so, yeah, for sure. Lake George, great. Lake George, Water Slide World. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, good choice. Favorite park, Westland Hills, Cook Park, or West Albany Pocket Park?
I would say Cook Park because that's probably the one I've been the most to.
Okay.
But West Albany Pocket Park was where started off with Pop Warner football.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you led into the last question there.
Yeah, Westland Hills was
So
where
what
it
was
started
it?
off with Tebow, Little League. Yeah.
Oh. And how many years did you play at Pop Warner?
My Pop Warner career wasn't too long because I remember our tailback John Anatola And the first time I got introduced to pads, and I tried tackling him, and at that time, we didn't have gloves and wrist tape. And I remember he lowered his head and he hit me right in the forearm, broke my forearm, and I think I just ended up playing like maybe like 1 or 2 games. Yeah, Pop Warner career was quick lived.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So here we'll get this going. So we're going to do this with everyone to kind of see where you are now. So the end. So the beginning here is the end, and the end will be the beginning. So going a
Hmm.
little Pulp Fiction style. Where are you? What's your current situation? Are you married? Do you have kids? And where are you living at?
So not married, no kids. Got a girlfriend. Her daughter's 20, almost like I'm not her dad or anything like that, but she's 20, got a good relationship. She's in college in Washington State, plays volleyball, 3.96 student. If she hears this, she's probably gonna get upset because she prides herself on being a 4.0 student. But right now, so on the weekends, living in Chandler, Arizona, visiting family in Litchfield Park, and then Monday through Friday, living on the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, uh, which is about 20 20 miles from work. And so there's an interesting story why living on the res, um, and commuting to work when uh when
And
we get to that
we'll get to
when we get
that.
to that. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So
All right, so now let's go the opposite direction. What part of Colony are you from, and who are some of the your friends or kids who are kind of living in the same general area that you did?
mhm. So grew up on North Elmhurst Avenue off of Central Ave. Probably about, if I remember, we were about a mile and a half south of um, Colony Center, the Central Ave Wolf Road intersection. And in our neighborhood, um, let's see, Carl Apollo, he lived over on his Chester, Brett McKay, see who else do I remember? I remember Chris Robalotti didn't live far by. Jay Libertucci, um, Marie Abraham. I remember her,
Yeah.
Megan Kenny. So we're all
So you're a
probably
West
like,
Albany. You're a West Albany kid, basically.
yeah, yeah,
Yep. All right.
yeah.
Cool.
So that was kind of like our little neighborhood gang right there.
Gotcha. In terms of high school, you graduated in '96, so you're kind of
Hmm.
like the early '90s, mid '90s era. Give us kind of a nutshell, perspective of what was important to you during your 4 years of high school at a high level. Like, what were the things that you were into or that you enjoyed, and maybe what were some of the things that you weren't into?
Yeah. Um, no, and that's a perfect question because looking back on it now, definitely puts a lot of things, a lot of learning lessons there from high school that translate to today. Definitely was just interested in making friends, hanging out with friends, just being a kid, riding bikes in the woods, playing sports. Always loved sports. My brothers play sports. All the people in the neighborhood. Wiffle ball obviously was huge at that time. So there was always wiffle ball games. Thanksgiving time playing football in the park, whether it was over near Our Lady of Mercy Church on the side
Yep.
or over on Longpole Street. School wasn't school wasn't that important. I just for some reason my brain just didn't develop that much at that time where I thought school was interesting. And then fast forward, completely different story. But it was just trying to just want to be a kid, just want to play sports, goof around, hang around my friends, go to the mall, go to the arcade. Um,
What
but
sports did you play in high school? Like, what organized sport, like on teams or whatever?
so played football, track, and lacrosse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then growing up, um, played baseball for a while. Um, wasn't very good at it.
Hmm.
Love watching the Yankees, but didn't uh didn't progress at baseball. It was just maybe the hand-eye coordination wasn't there. Basketball, I love
Right.
playing recreational basketball, just pick up games, down at Pocket Park. But yeah, I mean, I would say um that was
So,
probably the big things. Sports were more serious than school at that time, for
so,
sure.
so Tony, let me ask you this question too. So I had to pop open the yearbook because my memories faded.
Hmm.
And the one thing I know was big in our high school was music and choir. Did you play any
Hmm.
musical instruments or anything or sang in the choir?
Wow. So this is going back. So
We had
even
a choir?
before,
I didn't even know we had one. Because I'm
yeah.
interested to hear this. Go ahead.
So even before high school, I went Shaker Road Elementary, then to Sand Creek Middle School, then to Colonie High. So I think it was in Shaker Road. My mom was big on like, hey, I want these guys getting experience, and getting some culture in their life and just getting involved in sports and everything. I remember when I was in third grade, my mom's like, something came down from the school about playing a musical instrument. And she's like, I want you to go play an instrument. And I was like, I don't want to play an instrument. Like, I want to go hang out with my friends. And she got me into um, it wasn't a band or maybe it was like an orchestra, but playing the violin. And so from like um, third grade all the way up to, no, first, second, third in elementary school, played the violin, and then going from um, Sand Creek Middle School all the way up to when I graduated high school, played the baritone. Yeah,
Wow.
and
All
so,
right.
and it was kind of funny because in in uh in the school band, um, it was kind of funny because uh, from closest to um the music teacher, I guess you say. Like you have like the clarinets, the flutes, and then keep going out in the radius, and you have like the trumpets. It seemed like all the smart people were closer towards the music teacher. So everyone that I remember in my class that was like really smart, they were like all the girls that were smart, they were playing like the clarinet, the flutes, and the saxophone and everything. And then, not to, I'm not knocking anyone that, played the French horn or the trombone, but I remember like our crew that was back there, it was just, uh, I don't know. I always remember that about um, music class.
So,
Yeah.
so basically, the GPA got lower and lower as the farther away you got from the teacher. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah,
not to
yeah.
knock anyone, but
No,
oh, that's good. You played an instrument. I can't even say I played one, so I wasn't even that
no.
talented. So, all right,
And
cool.
yeah, definitely interesting experience.
All right.
So, so Tony, let me ask you this question. So, if you can, looking back, on
Mhm.
now you're where you're at in life, and looking back to where you were, and let's say you can go back in time, what would you go tell your younger self? As you walk through those doors in Colony Central your freshman year, what would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, really good question. Um, Pay attention more in class, read more, find all the older people in high school, and maybe not even the older people, but people that you see that are smart. They got good study habits. They're um, they're respected by teachers as being bright students, and then find um, the upperclassmen also in sports that are good, and just start picking people's brain, figuring out like just pick up like those little golden nuggets of success, and finding the teachers that are willing to take the time and have patience with you, and just surround yourself with those people, and then um, time management. Have a time to go play and have fun playing sports, but um, really try to gain as much knowledge as you can, before going to college or whatever you decide to do, and ask questions. I don't think I asked enough questions from enough enough upperclassmen and teachers that I really respected. Yeah.
So on that note, like, who would you say was of all the teachers in Colony, the biggest impact on you when you walked in through those doors?
Um, that's easy. That's Mike DeShuto, math teacher. Um,
Good guy,
him,
real good guy.
um, just the things that I learned from him as a teacher, I still use to this day, being in the position I'm at now at work, where when I see college kids coming in and they're having difficulty with material that we're doing or, some of the projects that we're on, and you see them, frustrated because they have to give a presentation or whatever. So I'll always find a way when it's something that, they're having a tough time grasping to make a joke about it the same way Mr. Casciuto did. Like he always had this silver thing that he called it Chucky and it ate the chalk. But the
Yeah,
way he presented it was like it always kept you um it always
engaged.
kept you engaged. You're always paying attention because you thought the class was funny, you know. And so I think if you can find someone like the people I work with that they're maybe like um whether they're carrying a lot of stress or they seem to be like super uptight, you got to find a thing to break it, to break that barrier and be like, hey, find a way to, whether it's joking around or having a good time, and that hey, this isn't the end of the world, and like we're gonna get through this. The sun's gonna rise tomorrow. We'll make sure you get this down before you give your presentation and everything. And so I always thought the way that he made he presented the material, it kept you, like you said. I mean, Pat, you said it kept you engaged, and
Right.
there wasn't a lot of teachers that took the time and patience with students where I'm just sitting there like, hey, this guy's funny, or this lady's interesting, and it shows you where, like they say, there's never such thing as bad students, you know, just bad teachers. And I noticed in his class, the math, like I went from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, so much more confident, in doing math, and it was just him being a teacher, just the way he presented it.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I had
Oh,
him for a couple classes, and I would
yeah,
agree with everything you just said. Real good guy.
yeah.
Um, so high school, it sounds like you had a typical high school experience. You played a bunch of
Mm.
sports, hung out with your friends. Maybe school, you didn't put as much effort into as maybe you wish you would now. But that's a pretty typical experience, I would say. So you get through the 4 years of high school at Colony, you graduate. And did you have a plan of what you were going to do after high school, or did you not have a plan? You wake up the next day, and what is Tony Martinez thinking? Take us through that.
Uh, yeah, zero. Pretty much the way I was living, all the way up to that point. No plan for the next day. Just you know, take the day in stride. Whatever happens, happens. And just completely unprepared, about my future. And one of the other guys that, or the brothers that lived in the neighborhood, he was getting ready to go into the military. And Pat Clark, and he's like, "Hey, you ever thought about the military?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, "I want to go to college and you know either run track, play football." And I remember he said something like, "Well, what colleges are you looking at?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Can you
Nobody.
usually know that when you graduate, right? If you're going to play a
Yeah,
sport in college, like you
right.
don't decide that the day after you graduate.
Yeah, usually by then you're getting letters,
Yeah.
you've already submitted your SAT scores, your ACT scores, and here I am. I'm like, I don't even know what college I want to go to or what college can I get into because didn't do good on the SATs, and so at that point, I mean, just that simple conversation, I was like, you know what, I'll come with you. down to the recruiter's office, and I forget where it was in Albany. Went down there, we went inside, we talked to the recruiter, and I remember he said, well, what do you like to do? What's your daily, lifestyle? And I said, oh, I just graduated high school, played sports in high school. I like to be active. I like to be outdoors. I like moving around. And so if there's something in the military that, kind of translates to that, that's something I'd be interested in. And he's like, well, I'd never forget this. And he's like, do you like to sleep? And I said, yeah. Like, who doesn't like to sleep? He's like, do you like to eat? I said, yeah, I like to eat. He's like, well, I don't think the Ranger program is going to be for you. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, the Rangers in the military, they don't eat, they don't sleep, they just shoot guns and rocket launchers, and they just ruck march all over the place and jump out of airplanes and everything. And I said, you know what? That sounds like what I need in my life right now. And I was like, I have no idea what this unit does, who these people are, but sign me up. And he said, well, before we do that, you got to go take the ASVAB test. So I went and go take the ASVAB test. If you score a certain GT score and your GT score and your ASVAB score, if it's high enough, you can qualify for that program. So there was no study materials for it. So I just went in, took the test, come back. He calls me up. He says, hey, you got a high enough score. You qualify for the RGV4 contract, the Ranger contract. I said, awesome. And what do I need to do next? And he's like, well, you need to swear in and sign the dotted line, and then we'll get you a basic training date, and we'll come pick you up, take you to the airport. You'll have your packet ready to go, fly down, and you start boot camp. And so, literally, after I graduated in June, by August 6th of 96, I was in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay. Now, the key question is, okay, so day after graduation, you don't have a plan. You go see the military recruiter. You decide you're going to do this.
Mhm.
At some point, you had to come home and tell your parents, like, I'm joining the military. And there's always all kinds of mixed reactions. I'm sure your parents were a bit surprised if you hadn't talked about that previously, and all of a sudden the day after graduation you're like, oh, by the way, I'm going into the military. Tell me what their reaction was, maybe what John's reaction, your older brother's reaction, Rob. Kind of talk us through that if you can even remember it.
Sure. No, yeah. So from June to August 6th, yeah, there was times of, like I said, you go meet with the recruiter, you go take the test and everything. And then finally, when I decided, I remember the recruiter and another guy came to our house on North Elmers, and my dad was asking a bunch of questions and everything. And at that time, so like I said, this is June, July-ish, 96. So Mogadishu, Somalia had already happened in October 93. So Clinton was president. My dad saw all the stuff there. And not to get into politics or anything, but they weren't getting support. There's some Rangers that got killed in Mogadishu. And so my father was like, yeah, I'm not on board with this, and I don't think you should do this, and I don't want to do this. My mom was like, hey, you graduated high school, you're about to be 18 years old, I support you, whatever, you want to do. I don't remember where John and my brother Rob was at the time. I'm sure they're probably, well, I think John was in the board show at that time, I think.
No,
And
no, I
then
was in I was in
uh,
Cortland.
Cortland at that time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember. And then my oldest brother, I think he was working at Albany Med, and I don't remember the reaction from John and my oldest brother, but it definitely wasn't the reaction from my dad. I mean, my dad was like not on board with it. I mean, he got so like when I came back and I signed up, or when I went down there. Uh, to me, that was a big day. When I went down um, to, I think it was MEPS was the name of the place, from what I remember. You go down there, you sign the contract, and then they bring you in this room, and it was an officer. I remember her; she was a captain, and she swears you in, and there's the American flag back there behind her, and you swear in, and then they congratulate you and everything. To me, that was an awesome day. Like I
Yeah.
felt like that day, like, I'm here. I'm 17 years old. This is a delayed entry program. Um, I don't need parental guardian approval. And that day when I walked out there was that feeling like I'm starting to grow up. Like,
Mm,
I realized I gotta do something in my life. And if this is the start of it, it's not gonna be easy, but I was smart enough to realize I needed a change in my life. I needed to get away
yeah.
from Albany, get away from my friends, and just find a skill, just develop a skill. You know.
Yeah. John, do you remember maybe, I don't know if you were living at home or you're not at home or at that time, but you obviously had to hear about it somehow or the other. Do you remember what your thoughts were about it? And then I'll let you transition into the next phase here.
Yeah, no, it's we were kind of, I think me and my older brother were kind of shocked because Tony was actually a pretty good athlete in football, and I know he got frustrated on playing the game a little bit, and like all of us at that age, we expect everything, I don't want to say given to us, but we're out there, we're sacrificing, and I know he got mad at football, but he was a good lacrosse player. He was good at track. And, I think me and my older brother thought he was just going to, go to Hudson Valley like the rest of some of our friends do and pick up on school there and, get focused and then go on to another 4-year college. So we were kind of shocked. But at the same time, it's proud, that he answered the call. Not many people hear that, call. And going to a defender country is not a bad thing. But I think all the friends that I had and we were all a little shocked that he was doing it. But yeah, I think at that time I was in my junior year at Cortland when that happened. I just remember my mom telling me something like, like, yeah, your brother snuck out through the back window because a van came and picked him up, and he went through the backyard so me and your father couldn't hear him go out there, because I think that's when he went to go swear in. So it was like really early in the morning. It was like this clandestine, spy, novel of getting out of the house without my parents hearing. Then he came back. So yeah, it was. It definitely was a surprise. But I think that's where the chapter in his high school career ended, and the next chapter begins. And it's like, I mean, as we continue to have this conversation, it gets more and more interesting with that. But Tony, just in I guess too here, because we're coming up on time here. We got
Mm.
a couple more minutes to go. I was just going to say, are you able to hang out and talk to us again another time to
Yeah,
pick up where you're heading down to Fort Benning, Georgia, to actually start your military career?
yeah, no, absolutely. There's one thing you guys brought up. Now that thinking about, like, Pat, when you said, like, when you graduate high school, what was your plan in place? And it's funny, when you bring up Hudson Valley, thinking like, hey, when you graduate, if you didn't have a plan, if your grades weren't good enough to get into a 4-year university, a lot of people went to Hudson Valley, and I think there was always that stigma attached. I don't know if it was like with your guys' class or with every class, or just the general Colony culture where, hey, if you graduate Colony and you go to Hudson Valley Community College or you go to JCA of Albany, you're a loser. Like, if you go to a
Yeah.
community college and you don't go to a university, like, you're a loser. And I think that was the stigma. That's like what, um, people say Happy Valley Country Club, Harvard on the Hudson. But it's funny how what I thought about Hudson Valley at that time in '96, and then how that place really helped me out in the future, and definitely get
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah, no doubt. And
Yeah.
kind of looking back, I agree. There's definitely a stigma with that. And I think
Mm.
just because so many people did go that route, but I can tell you some of the most successful people I know now went to Hudson Valley, turned things around, or just found a different interest and then built off of that. So it is still a very good option, I would tell, for even kids today, and not to get bogged down with that. But John, I think we're going to kind of close this session up, and we hope all our viewers tune in for session 2. And I just want to ask everyone, if you're enjoying this, to punch that subscribe button for us. So, John, you want to take us out?
Yeah, no, like Pat said, we're looking to hear some more great stories, and Pat kind of nailed it there. There are a lot of great Colony alumni that have gone on to do some great things, and those are the stories that we want to hear in that. So, like Pat said, if you're having fun, just hit subscribe, and we'll get some more great alumni to join us. On that note, Tony, thanks for the time, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.